Major Kira finally means it again when she says good morning. Lieutenant Jadzia Dax's task is to recite the complete chronicle of the women of the House of Martok, and Jake Sisko sells his first book. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Let's just go ahead and cut to the chase, guys. Usually I introduce the episode, but Terry Farrell is here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Okay. Now we can say, my name is Ryan.
Thank you for having me.
Malissa Longo is here. It's a
Thank you.
Nog episode. And we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 7, the legendary You Are Cordially Invited, written by Ronald D. Moore and directed by David Livingston. This is November 10th, 1997. How's everybody doing?
Are we going back
Doing
in time?
I kind of felt like saying, what were you doing in 1997?
Oh, this is a David Livingston episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. There were a lot of takes on that.
Really?
Yeah, David. Do you remember that?
David. Like, he was always like in his head about stuff and scratching his head and doing one of these.
Yeah.
Wasn't he?
A lot of times, I don't just do it again. Well, what do you want different, David? Let's just do it again. Let's just get one more. And it was like, oh my goodness, I know we got it.
Cirroc,
Yes.
we have got to get David Livingston on this show because we keep hearing about him.
Yeah.
And I bet you that intro that I did, he'd be like, I wasn't feeling it. Can you do it again?
Just one more. Can we just do one more?
And he'd be right. And
pull your shirt down.
Yeah.
I
ran into David.
Melissa, that's a little confusing.
I know.
Right.
Yes, true.
I ran into David at the convention in Vegas, this last mission log. And he was with his wife, and it was really good to see him after all of these years. It's been so many years. But yeah, he would love to come on the show. He said he would, and I'd love to talk to him about his directing style and some of the big episodes he directed. But this is the big episode. This is the marriage episode, which I remember a lot of fanfare and publicity about. Did you remember like doing some of those kind of TV guide covers and things like that?
Oh gosh, yeah. It was a ton of I don't remember. We didn't do a TV guide cover. We probably should have. That picture of the two of us was so great.
Yeah.
Me and Michael.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember super hot though. I remember being
Yeah.
super hot. We did the pictures. Michael was really pissed. Besides, most of it was about my character. So I had a lot to do. So it was fun for me. I got to do the gamut. Be drunk, be angry, trying to figure it out. I had a whole arc that I got to go through in that episode, which is really exciting for me to do. And I remember too saying that all of this stuff was happening around it. And I think it was also how much they spent on our costumes probably was the cost of an episode.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot, it was hand sewn, they're all leather. It was ridiculous.
It looks really Game of Thronesy to me. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
It has that Game of Thrones vibe to it.
It looks very regal.
Yeah.
Yes, there's that too. Yeah, very regal.
Now, Terry, you mentioned your arc, your character arc. And since you mentioned it, I did want to bring up that while I was watching this episode, I was very impressed with your acting. And I was very pleased for you as an actor that you were given basically a different mood or motivation in every single scene. Like you were saying, this scene, I'm drunk. This scene, you showed off your angry Dax in this episode in a way that I've never seen in 6 seasons. I remember going like, wow, I don't think we've seen her be fierce or combative or, fighting or whatever, but we've never seen her actually this frustrated and angry. And I want to know, when you saw the script, were you like, all right, here we go, this is my moment?
I think that, do you mean when I punched my mother-in-law?
I mean, the entire episode itself, to just be able to show off so many different facets and so many different levels of your acting skill.
Thank you. I mean, in regards to what you were saying about the anger, because when I remember about it, was feeling a real, really in tune to me, Terry, not being heard, not being seen, always sort of being patted on the head. She's a pretty girl. Oh, she'll be fine. She's not really that upset. She's being dramatic, and that too is like a womanhood thing. That is a patriarchal society. Women, girls go through, we're not supposed to be angry. We're not supposed to say what we're really thinking. We're supposed to be polite. We're supposed to just suck it up. And I think that scene with her gave me permission to say, no, I'm done with all of this, and let the anger rule over what would be the appropriate response. Right. So her anger got to her, and I got to get it out, and Terry got to get it out.
Yeah.
It felt very real.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it was so nuanced. Like when you're going through the houses, the line for your mother-in-law, it was so nuanced, and she was such a smart ass, and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. The little digs were so wonderfully detailed and wonderful to watch.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
it was fun to work.
I felt like watching this episode that Dax was dealing with her own kind of racism or prejudice that she was feeling in this moment, because the mother-in-law says, point blank, you're an alien, an outsider. You can never truly be one of us. Yeah. And that's something that, a lot of minorities can relate to, having that kind of sentiment placed upon them. So I really felt like you played that well, as far as, dealing with your own racism. Like, this is, and to a culture that you had embraced and knew about. And, I was respecting.
I was trying my best to respect it. So, but they weren't respecting me. I can relate to that on a personal level throughout my life. Being with people that come from a different culture than I do, it doesn't matter if we're the same color, if it's a different culture. Because if you're the outsider, you're the outsider. And if they don't embrace you and there's just you, it is not safe. It's just how we're built as beings. Well, specifically us human beings, we need community. We need to feel part of the whole. We need to be seen. We need to be recognized as valuable. Otherwise, we feel shamed and othered and excluded. And that is how the ancestors that didn't make it died, by being shunned. That's how animals died, by being shunned. It's just a natural need to belong that we all have, and when you're outnumbered, as you can understand in many situations, Cirroc, it's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible feeling to feel that aloneness. And even being a kid that was teased in school, I was very tall. I had high waters. We didn't have a lot of money. And so I was teased about that stuff too, made fun of for stuff that really isn't that important. It's funny, as an adult, you think it's unbelievable what kids do to each other. And it's all to feel safe, right? They need to feel safe. They're afraid of that kid that's othered because they don't want to be like them. It's, a lot of things we're afraid of is because we don't want to be that. And honestly, it's remarkable that Worf and Dax got together at all when I think about the characters separately, it's sort of, how did that work? Because Jadzia did an awful lot of work to conform, and that's kind of interesting for a 350-year-old being.
Yeah, well, I don't think it would have happened if it wasn't for Jadzia, because she was this open vessel to other people and other cultures, and with that wisdom that she brought through her 300 years, I don't think anyone else could have reached Worf in the way that she did. So
nobody else did.
On traditions.
Yeah.
Because of Curzon being buddies with all those guys too. And that being her last host is probably super present for her.
I want to also highlight a scene in which you're carrying these two like heavy vats, and you have to balance them and then place them down on the thing. And of course, your stepmother is giving you all of this hell about, not placing it properly on the pedestal, and, just not doing it right. And the moment I want to just, congratulate you and just give you your flowers for the way you portrayed that scene. Really loved that scene, loved your performance in it. And the moment that I enjoyed the most was, and this is a moment I've seen on screen before, and I'll give an example in the movie Glory, when Denzel Washington is being whipped. There's a moment where he's resolute about, I'm going to take this whipping and still, be strong and hold on to my dignity. And there's a moment when Sisko does that same thing earlier on in this series, in the seasons, where he crawls back into a cage, in which they put him in a cage.
Like second
and he's
season.
like, no, second season. And he's like, you know what? I'll go back in that cage, and I'm going to persevere through this. And I felt that same kind of energy in the scene that you were in, when you kind of like, you know what? I'm going to pick this thing back up, and I'll do it again, and I'm going to persevere, even though I know you're wrong, even though I know you're just trying to break me. I think those are powerful moments.
And that's the key, though, right? You're trying to break me, and you can't break me.
Right.
I believe in me, and this is a game, and I'm going to get through it.
Yeah. That means the real power. That means the real power was in your hands.
Yeah.
You were the one that held the power, that decided if you were going to break or if you were going to stay in control of yourself. And by the way, can we just point out you had some guns there? That's Terry Farrell, the actor, that had guns there.
Yes.
That wasn't Jadzia.
Yes, I noticed that too. I was like,
well done.
Yes, I would just like to thank my trainer at the time, Brian Shires, for my kickboxing and kickboxing. And actually, Armin and Kitty introduced me to him. So, I was looking for a trainer, and oh wow, thank you.
But he whipped you into shape on that. Yeah. And the line that you said, that just I every once in a while we go through and I'll point out the line of the episode. And,
good.
And in this episode, you had the line of the episode, which I thought was the one that stood out the most and had the most meaning behind it and was delivered the best. But it's a 3-word sentence, but it's, I don't beg.
Yeah.
And that's all you said. You're like, I don't beg. Like, I'm not begging, to be accepted by you or whatever, I just love that line. I was like, wow, I don't beg. That needs to be on a Dax t-shirt.
Yes.
She's not.
Right.
Yes.
With her guns blazing, it says, I don't beg.
Yes.
I don't beg.
Oh my gosh.
Because the truth is, I know the shame of being the other side of that, of feeling that desperation of, please accept me. I'll do anything to be accepted. I have felt that small in my life. And that's not an easy thing to come back from. But and Dax still enriches me to this day playing that character. And recently I've been through, I don't mean COVID, as you all know, I've been through quite a lot. And in this last year, I feel like I've rebuilt myself back up again. And I haven't been doing interviews and stuff because it's been a really difficult time. This is the first one. Yeah, and part of it is I trust you guys, right? I know you know me. We've all known each other a really long time. This is not about exploiting me. And I know you won't ask me anything uncomfortable. But this has been a very important year for me. And I'm so happy that you said that because I feel like that's back in my bones.
Nice.
It's back in me, like my true self is back in me. And it takes an enormous commitment and dedication and discipline to stay with yourself every day. I am okay, and I trust myself, and I love myself, and I forgive myself. I have made mistakes, and some of them have felt pretty deplorable, but you know what? I have to forgive myself and love myself. There are people I would forgive for the same thing, so I have to forgive myself. And this episode reminds me, Terry, of how strong I actually am, because I could not play Dax if I didn't already have it in me. I wasn't pretending those things.
Yeah, it felt very real. And you know, everybody talks about, you know, my growing up and my maturing on the show, but I believe that you matured on the show as well, right?
Sure.
I saw you in the beginning of the show and watching you kind of go through the motions. And in this 6th season now, just before this marriage episode, you were literally the captain on the Defiant running the show. You know, Sisko had to step back. You're in charge. And I was like, wow, I'm really proud of her because she's shown so much growth and development. And this season has seemed like it's been your, you know, breakout season for like, I'm here, I've arrived. I can be in charge. I know who I am. I'm, you know, getting married. I'm just in control of myself, and I really felt that, especially more so in this 6th season, which has been like building you up to this really high level.
Thank you. Yeah, I felt like I really deserved it. I really do. I felt like I think at the time though, there was so much going on with them trying there were so many head games on, you know, on the political front that was super unfortunate. I just didn't expect that because, you know, like Ira said many times, we write for who's, you know, showing up that we feel inspired by. But that's why I was even more perplexed that that the powers that be didn't at least have some kind of, you know, solution to make me feel like I was being heard. And it's kind of like I started out being very insecure. You're right. I was overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed in the 1st season. And it was like acting college. Like I'd been in classes and everything, but this was, as you know, Cirroc, like, my God, you just have to show up and be creative, whether you feel like it or not. You're going to have a good day, you're going to have a bad day, and you just have to deal with it. And best way to learn how to be an actor is to jump in and just do it and believe it, whether you're feeling good or not. It's just the way it is. And I miss being on this series. I mean, I really, Becker was also really tough because it was a completely different format. But I think all of those situations when you're on a TV series and you have a chance to make mistakes and try better the next time and forgive yourself for performances that you think, oh, that was terrible, but you get a chance the next week to follow up, you really earn self-respect for yourself as a creative person. And you know you're going to have good days and bad, and it's not that big of a deal.
Well, you were also surrounded by so many forces of nature, like Avery, Nana, Renee. I mean, these people that like you were playing with the big kids. I mean, I can only imagine walking into a room surrounded by these people can be, intimidating. It could be inspiring. It could be so many things. It could be very overwhelming.
Well, I would say intimidating to begin with. Because they were really overtired by the time I got hired. They didn't have a lot of patience left. I was the last person shot out in the pilot. I didn't get a chance to warm up to anybody. It was like, boom, we're shooting. And I hadn't worked for a really long time on a regular basis. So it was really super overwhelming. And Renee, bless him, we used to talk about this, but he had no patience for me in the beginning. None. And that I would come undone. It was too much. He was too overwhelming. Avery, at least I could, he was great. I remember that first time him saying old man to me, and it was so much. And I had to pull him aside. I said, I'm just a 28-year-old woman. I'm a young woman at that. I can't one up you. I just can't. That's not who I am. And could you help me? Because I feel like I'm really nervous. And he was really kind to me after that. I think he never said as much, but he was, I think he really appreciated my honesty and just saying like how I was feeling honestly. And from that point on, it was like we had this kind of quiet understanding, I mean, he still would push me, as you know, right, Cirroc? He would still like toe to toe it, like, you're going to show up for this. I expect more from you, which was great. It's like all your best teachers are the ones that like, you go, I can't. And they go, yes, you can.
You will.
Yeah.
And he would say that without even saying it. He would just look at you and be like, oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Right? Like, okay, I'm doing this. And there's scenes where we had arguments, our characters did, and I love them. Love them.
Yeah.
Right?
Acting college. Yeah, acting college is the best way to put it. It is like a university level. It's graduate school for acting. It's, when you step on the set, you got all these people and they know what they're doing so well. Like, I watched Avery do a one-man show of Paul Robeson.
Me too.
And just for everybody out there, a one-man show. That means you have to know the entire script. You have to keep the audience entertained for an hour and a half.
No. And it's just one man and a dozen women, right? That sounds exhausing.
That's my one man show. That ain't.
Oh, right.
One person.
No,
you have not changed.
But I say that because I want to say I'm highlighting the degree of difficulty that these actors that we worked with are capable of. The degree of difficulty is off the charts when you're able to do a one-man show and you're able to go through a whole script with the dialogue and it all by yourself. Shakespeare and all of this stuff. This is all high level acting. And everybody that we worked with, the Armand, the Renee's, Avery, that's what they do. So, the expectations there for somebody like me who was just coming in there and I'm looking like, okay, but you better hit your mark. You better have your lines right. You better know, ready for the camera, all of those things. So it is a lot and it is overwhelming, but, we all of us collectively figured it out and had that kind of synergy. And I thought that your growth is so amazing on this show. And it kind of culminates almost into this episode where it's like, oh, let's celebrate who she is. And we get to see so many different versions of who you are as far as, accepting, persevering, not backing down, but then softening up when the moment kind of comes. And I love that about how dynamic your performance is.
Thank you. That means a lot. That means so much to me. I love you for seeing me.
It's what you did.
And you were there.
I was there.
But you know what part of it too is, I think when I think about it too, not, of course, it was still a lot of dialogue, but it wasn't a technobabble episode. Yeah. So I got to really be in the drama, which is more connected to real life without the language getting in the way. Where I think that a lot of the times with technobabble, for me, especially being the science officer, it's so stifling to be stopped when it's not perfect. So it's like when you stop, instead of just, okay, it's not perfect, but let her just get through the freaking monologue so that there isn't this cutting me off because I said one word wrong, and not letting there be a flow to it. It's like you could get the monologue out, even if you got a couple words wrong or mispronounced an alien name, you would still have the flow better. And then you could go, oh, right, that's how I say the alien name. Instead of now you've interrupted my flow. So now I'm so hyper-focused on the first 3 sentences and that one alien name I got wrong. And now when the second half comes up, it's like, oh, shoot, now it's brand new again, because I was so hyper-focused these last 10 takes over the stupid name of the alien I couldn't get right. So there's a really weird dynamic of the dialogue having to be absolutely perfect. And I think really what would have helped all of us without question, is if we would have had a dialect coach on set just to run lines with us. That being their job for everybody, that's it. To go to each trailer and run lines, because that's what we did on Becker. If we had a lot to say, our script supervisor, but being on a sitcom, it was a different timing, right? She would take the time. If you said, would you come run lines with me? She could, but on Deep Space, there were too many people and the timing was too important with the filming. We didn't have breaks where on a half hour, you're filming 1 day a week. So you have time to have somebody run lines with you, right? But that would be a really important, smart thing, I think, for production to do, is to have just somebody to run lines.
Yeah, and it would show, because they wouldn't have everybody pronouncing these planets and these aliens differently. We notice them scene to scene, but the actors don't know because they're not in that other scene. They're just saying their line here and someone else is saying it 3 episodes later in a different scene and they're pronouncing it differently. That's a great idea. We do have to take a super quick break. Man, this is good stuff. Terry, you're just the best. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to come right back on the 7th rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a very special edition of the 7th rule with Terry Farrell, of course.
Yay.
Cirroc Lofton is here wearing a Star Trek shirt, which I don't think I've ever seen you wear a Star Trek shirt, by the way.
Yeah, I just to break the mold a little bit and just represent the OG original guys.
I've heard of it.
We need more Melissa merch out there.
Malissa is also here, being awesome as usual. So here are you wearing a Star Trek shirt too?
Inside and out.
There it is.
Cool.
That you can find at walkingartmadebymelissa.com. That shirt, hang on, let's do that. If you would like a cool shirt or any awesome shirt that Malissa makes, walkingartmadebymelissa.com. It is in the description box of every single video we do. Just click the link, go there, buy cool stuff. And here
y'all are awesome.
Here are the trivioids of the week. Here we go. Everybody's like, dude, just get through them quick. We want to hear more about Terry. Okay. 3 flags unfurl in Deep Space Nine. Major Kira finally means it again when she says good morning. I thought that was a really nice moment there. Martok is promoted to new Supreme Commander of the 9th Fleet. Alexander meets his new stepmom. By the way, I forgot about that. That's awesome. Alexander meets his stepmom. Worf wants Alexander to be his best man. Worf gets misty-eyed when talking about Klingon rituals. That was a Dax line. Martok's deterioration is proceeding apace, he says to his wife. Alexander can barely say his name in Klingon. Mustakas. Oh, then Mustakas seemed to be a mistako. I don't remember what those Mustakas were, but so maybe that joke didn't work anymore.
An attempt at a pun.
Jake sold his first book today. Dax's task is to recite the complete chronicle of women of the House of Martok. And she had a really cool moment there where she said, well, actually, Sorella's 23rd maternal grandmother is not who she thinks she is. Dr. Bashir has a vision that he's going to kill Worf, and he sees it very clearly.
Yeah.
All right. Lots of good stuff there. Do you remember what it was like working with and forgive me, I don't know the actress's name, but the lady that plays Sorella? I believe that may have been the only episode she was in, but do you remember any of that, Terry?
No, unfortunately, I think part of that was I was so heavy in that episode. It was really about my character that I probably, as per usual, when I have a lot of lines, I spend a lot of time in my trailer in between. Some of it's just saving my energy because it takes an enormous amount of energy, even just to be on the set and, socialize with people, but try to keep your focus on the work. So there's this balance. So for me, I get very depleted. I'm what is it? I can't remember how they term this, but I get depleted. So I am more of an introverted extrovert kind of thing, rather than getting energized. It's not that people drain me. I get drained because I need my time alone to kind of just replenish and be quiet. I meditate a lot. So that's probably why I wouldn't have spent time socializing. I probably would have met her if it was like we had 2 or 3 scenes and the episode was about Worf. I would have spent more time saying hi to her. But if I was heavy in an episode, I didn't really get to know people around me because I cared about, doing the work as best I could. And it's really rare when you'd have such a juicy script like that. And I did luckily on the show, I did have a good handful of juicy scripts. So I tried to give a lot of focus to them when I would have them.
Your chemistry with Worf, with Michael Dorn, is really amazing. And I think it's unlike anybody else who has a connection or scenes with him. How were you able to build that chemistry? I mean, he just was thrown in at the 4th season or so. And, did you know him before? Or, tell us a little bit about that.
I met Michael Dorn at a party. A mutual friend, said, oh, this guy, Michael Dorn, who's on Next Generation. I was like, I don't watch that show. Okay. He's this tall, handsome black man. Okay. I'll meet him. Tall, handsome black man did it for me. And
hey, Cirroc.
All right.
Then he walked in with this tall, beautiful woman. And I was like, so he has a girlfriend? And she said, yeah. And I'm like, you're trying to set me up with a guy that has a girlfriend? Well, he wants to be set up with you. I'm like, no, I'm not going out with a guy. What? I thought that was, I'm not going to say out loud what I thought that was, but you can fill in the blank. Yeah. And then I consequently met him different times. I thought he was funny and nice, but I thought, I don't think I could trust this guy. And but because Marina being like best friends with him, and I met Marina through the same friend, I got to know these guys before for a couple of years before I even read for Deep Space Nine. So much so that they were trying to decide whether to set me up with Brent or if it should be Michael, so I went out with Brent for a minute, and it was crazy. Anyway, I love all those guys, and in my screen test or my makeup test for Deep Space, I was on the Next Gen set, and it felt crazy because it felt like all my friends are in Next Gen. And Jonathan Frakes was on Paper Dolls with me. That was my first acting job on ABC. And Marina, Michael, and Jonathan came down to congratulate me in Mike Westmore's little room when I got the part. So I had this relationship with him and friendship with him all before he got on deep space, and would see him at holiday parties at Marina's house and everything. And so when he came on, we were both like, hey, we're friends. Let's flirt with each other in the scenes. Because chemistry is really about flirting with each other. You create that. People having chemistry, it's there is the natural chemistry that people can have, but there is a way that you can kind of manufacture it. And one of my teachers told me, there was a person I was working with that I did not care for, and she said, well, find one thing you like about him, even if it's just his ears. And I went, okay. So it was like his nose. Okay, he's got a nice nose. And I just tried to listen to him differently and be more open to that, and just try to create a friendship. So in that, it starts to create a chemistry, because it really is your connection as people that makes the most difference. But you do create it, as we do work on friendships and whatnot in real life. So we did that. And so I don't know how much of it had to do with us intentionally flirting with each other, or if they brought him on to intentionally bring us together. I've never had that conversation with Ira, but in any case, obviously it worked.
It worked.
And he's a big flirt anyway. So it was, when I bit him, it wasn't written to bite him, but I did. And it was like, what did she just do? There was a scene where I bit him, and it was like, what? And so it was kind of fun. It felt like I was messing with Michael's head a bit. It felt like that, like, you can't have me.
Yeah,
so there's that element that creates chemistry too, like, that sassy.
The playfulness. Yeah. And when you called him out, I mean, you softened him up more than anybody I've seen. Like, when you call him out on stuff, he's like, well, John Cia, the reason I have to. You make him explain himself in a way that he doesn't explain himself to anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, what's interesting too is we would have disagreements, and we would go to his trailer and talk about it and work it out. And it was really good, a really good relationship. And I think it created mutual respect, and we really love each other as friends, because we take the time to take a deep breath, listen to each other, and try to understand each other's point of view. And that's how we worked as coworkers together. So we created a friendship in that. At work, which I think, obviously, the longer we worked together, the more our relationship worked, because it wasn't then just flirting. It was a real friendship and a deep respect and love for each other.
The two of you on screen very clearly were written and acted as opposites attract, right? That was kind of what made us love it and just eat it up. Not just because it was two great characters that we love, but also that the comedy gold was already there, right? But you also, you also played it up a little bit more, and it sounds like a little bit of that was a reflection of your actual personalities. The way you said you kind of teased him a bit. Do you feel like it was just an honest and easy reflection of your personalities, or do you feel like you kind of had to ham it up a bit more for to make it work?
No, I think that we came, no, I don't think that we were hamming it up. That, because I guess to me, when you say hamming up, it sounds like manufacturing it. I think we both came wherever we were coming from. And I think that when you have mutual respect for each other and really enjoy each other as people, you can come from wherever you're coming from. I mean, if something was happening in our personal lives, we could have a little like, I'm so sorry, this is what's happening, and be honest with each other and then move forward. It wasn't, it was an honest exchange of communication with each other always. And also in real life too, he will call me out and stuff too and be like, Farrell. And I'm like, what?
Dorney.
He knows me. I know, right? Yeah, well, that's what they call each other, Dorney and Farrell. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a very special relationship.
Well, and piggybacking off of that, another special relationship that is spectacular to watch on screen is between Kira and Dax, and I know that that's a special relationship off screen as well. You two are amazing, yeah, beings, both of you, and and there's a scene in this episode where you and Kira hadn't been together since the occupation of Deep Space Nine, and then coming back together, it was like you picked up right where you left off, just like, you know, honestly, as friends would do, and you set boundaries with each other, but the love was still there, and it was so potent, and the chemistry is there too, which is beautiful to see, especially during that time, you know, in the 90s where you don't see that as much. So special.
Yeah, I feel wow, I feel really blessed to have the relationship I have with Nana from then and now. I think it was more challenging because we had so much surrounding our careers, and there were so many other things going on behind the scenes and stress. So we weren't as close then, but I feel like there was always the potential, but there was a lot going on. She had a young family. I was still single. And, you know, it's interesting. We both went through a lot of stuff. And 2013, when we got together, I told everybody the story of what was happening with me. Nobody was talking to me at the time that year, really, about what was happening to me the sixth season. So everybody found out in 2013 about how I was said, look, could I please be reoccurring? Just be reoccurring. There's so many people. What would it matter if I was every other episode? I just need a break. I'm exhausted. And Ira was like, I didn't know that. I would have been okay with that. It's like, well, too late now. But we really reconnected then. And I think it was great because Nana didn't know where I was coming from. She didn't ask at the time. She was just pregnant with Django, or just had Django. It was a lot going on for her in her life. More stuff that I will not share, but you all know from what was going on in all of our lives behind the scenes. And we really, in our reconnection, have spent time really getting to know each other in a deep and honest way. And we both have grown a lot. We both have, I think, helped each other a lot. In this last year, I don't think I could not have done it without her being my big sister through this for me. And I love her so much for that. I really, really needed her, and she really showed up for me. And I don't think anyone's cared for me and loved me and championed me the way she has, especially in this last year for me. So yeah, she is my chosen sister. Yeah, and I know I'm not alone in the love for her.
Yeah.
I mean, another, people always watch, they ask, oh, was the connection with you and Avery real? That's what I get asked all the time, because and I'm like, duh. But and that's what comes across on screen. Like what you just gave us the background about your history with Michael Dorn, it comes across on screen. We can see that there's a genuine, real friendship, relationship, chemistry between the two of you. And you and Nana, clearly you guys, there's this real bond between the two of you that is present on screen. The camera only captures what really exists, what's really there. Yeah. And I feel like,
and we worked at them. So sorry to interrupt, but we all worked at our relationships. We had to. We were tired. It was a lot. It was a lot of lines. There was a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. We had to communicate with each other, even if we didn't do it well and we got angry because we were overtired. We had to we were in the trenches together.
We were.
Shared experience. And when it's happening, it's a shared experience.
It is.
Yeah.
And that was going to lead me to my next question, which is, I felt like I had Avery as a person that was looking out for me or protecting me, or, just somebody that I felt like was watching out for my best interest. Did you have anybody like that you felt was like, this is the person that I know is looking out for my best interest, or is kind of, maybe take me under their wing in certain instances? Did you feel like you had that, or did you develop that over the years?
I think I developed it over the years, but I would say that there were a few times, and I would have to point out that actually there was one time I really was having a hard time. I really had a hard time with all the techno babble to begin with. I that's nothing that I would ever think would be a strong suit for me.
Who wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Mohamed Noor, maybe.
All right.
Or
Aaron McDonald.
Right.
Nicole DeBois, she said that it's easy for her.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, she said it's easy for her, and it wasn't easy for me. But I remember one time I was particularly embarrassed, so embarrassed with how many takes it was taking, and I started crying really hard. I was so overtired, and when I get nervous, I get really skinny, and I was really skinny that first year on the show. And David Livingston and Avery took me aside in the trailer. So I would say Avery probably, but he had so much to do. It wasn't like he could constantly be there for me. But they also hired me because of Paul Lynch. And unfortunately, he shamed me about this. They hired an acting coach for me, and Ivana Chubbuck. And she said to me, Terry, I don't think there's a problem with you as an actress. And I'm sorry they're making you feel like you're not a good actress. You need a dialect coach. You need someone to run these lines with you. It's too much that they're doing this. And I would have 9.5-hour turnarounds. They would have me come in. They wouldn't get to me. I'd have my close-up at 2 a.m. Then I'd have 9.5-hour turnaround. Then I'd have a short weekend. Like, there's a point where the first 6 months, you're like, yay, the extra money. And then you're like, no, please, I'll pay you. I need to sleep. I need to sleep. I don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but yeah, it was difficult. I've been in many situations in my life where I felt like the outsider, and that one felt that way too. But this has been a really good lesson, I think, in my life. And especially this I think I'm done learning this lesson. I just have to remind myself every day to forgive myself. Is that I need to surround myself with a support group. And I think I'm done uprooting myself. But who knows? But if I do uproot myself and move again in my life, I know I will create community immediately, because that's the most important thing. And I think that's what the tough thing about a job like Deep Space Nine, action adventure, high special effect show is. It's hard to have your community outside of work. Your whole life is at work. That's why it's so hard on personal lives, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it becomes everything, because there's no time for anything besides work.
Well, you know, Terry, we're all here for you. Anything you need, of course. Absolutely. You know, we love you to death, and you're very easy to love. So I'm sure you can find community anywhere you go. You're right, because
I have it now, but I mean, I'm just trying to express, there's times that we all go through that. And like Cirroc was saying there, but yeah, I mean, towards when Michael came on, I felt like he was there for me for sure. Michael was there for me, you know.
You know, it's great.
Did the techno battle ever get easier? I'm sorry.
No, please.
No, what?
Yeah. No, did the techno babble ever get easier? Did you ever just, I mean, because you say you broke down, it was too much. Did it ever come to a point where you were like, okay, I figured out a formula that works for me?
Yeah, just had to read it over and over again. And Renee gave me that advice. You just have to read it over and over again. But then as I started to get good at it, when they change it up at the last minute, it would be like, oh, just burn me, you know?
Do you have any idea how many times I just said this?
And I don't know, but you like in the middle of the night, I would wake up, turn my light on and go, yes, okay. And then say it again in my head, put my paper down. No one's next to me in the king size bed, but my script. Turn the light back off, try to go back to sleep, wake back up again. What was the name of that? Turn it back on, read it again.
Yeah.
Neutrino. And they change one word and you're like, no.
Yeah. Neutrino tachyon particle disbursement array deflector. You're like, you just gotta put it in your head.
Blows up.
Yeah.
So we've only got about a minute left here.
Can I just say, I want to give a shout out to Aaron. Because Aaron and I made up this dance together in the episode. And it was so beautiful. And Aaron and I always had this special kind of banter with each other anyway. But we made up this crazy dance. Part of it was I did this thing with my niece, and it was called Shirley Cat. It was just a weird thing where you go, Shirley Cat, and we both go at each other. So we did that. And then so we both decided together what it was going to look like. And
did it look something like this?
Thing.
Oh,
look at us.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Such a great memory.
It was a great. Nobody will ever forget that dance.
That's true. 27 years later, we're still talking about it.
Yeah, he's up there. Fred Astaire, Michael Jackson, and Nog. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And it'll always be alive on film.
Yes.
That's the best part.
That is the best
in
part.
the early days of our show, he did that a couple times for us. He'd go like, ha! He'd give us the move, give us a taste. Eat your heart out.
Give a taste.
Yeah.
Little taste. Yeah. Without the love.
Yeah.
Well, Terry, this has been just the best thing ever. And this is clearly one of your most memorable Dax episodes. Does it rank up there for you? It seems like it ranks pretty high up there for you, just if nothing else for what you accomplished as a human and as an actress to just dominate these very difficult scenes. How fondly do you look back and remember this one in particular?
Oh, so much. Yeah, so much. I just, anything where there's a challenge and you feel like you've met it feels very satisfying. And I'm so happy you reminded me of it, because it's one I forget, because so many people talk about Rejoin, so many people talk about Trials and Tribulations, Far Beyond the Stars. And this one, people don't bring it up. And some of the Klingon episodes are right up there too, where I feel like I was, really fortunate and lucky to have everybody be my supporting cast in that episode and really show up for me.
You conquered this one. You dominated.
Yes, thank you. I love you guys so much.
You did.
They
gave you the hardest stuff to do. So they gave you all the techno babble, and then they gave you Klingon. Speak Klingon too on top of that.
Right?
Like, the calculus level. What is
you know what? They couldn't break me. They just
That's
couldn't
right.
Yeah.
You were holding those
Couldn't break
things out.
Yeah. That's great. I'm so glad that you left this behind as part of your legacy, that we'll always have this. I think it's the greatest wedding in Star Trek. Still to this day, I would argue. Maybe Ryan knows, but
I can't
definitely
think of a better one.
It left that impression on us. So thank you, Terry, for sharing your recap of those moments and those times. It's amazing. We love it.
I thank you for helping me remember it and relive it with you guys. And thank you so much for making me feel so talented.
You are?
Well, that was easy. Yeah, you kind of did the work there.
So like get Max off to college and let me go read for stuff.
Yes.
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 So Cirroc, what's our new series going to look like, you and me?
Oh man, I'm writing it as we speak. It's
excellent.
It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome.
Got a buddy
Joe and
cop.
the Cougar.
He's got a buddy cop show with Beltran, so we got to think of something else. For you.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you
the
do?
Buddy cop
no.
show.
Well, wait a minute. Oh, I'm so sorry, baby girl. I just hit the cat. I could be like your cop show. Well, can I be your police chief? Something like that.
I was going to say if they're the
maybe you're
angels,
chosen white person.
you could be the Charlie to their angels, right?
We've got this cast working now.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Write it down.
Oh yeah.
A future cop show coming up.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. So we do want to give a very special thanks, of course, to Carmen, aka Skillet, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan, Yvette Blackmon, Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy, Eve England out in Wales, Dr. Marie Segal, Titus Mohler, Tim Baum, John Mann, Darlena Marie, Rex A. Wood, Dr. Mohamed Noor. What are you laughing about, Cirroc? Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Joe Balsarotti, and Tierney C. Dieckmann. Thank you all very much. Very big special thanks to Terry Farrell for opening her heart and her memories to us. We really appreciate it. We love everything that you've done and everything that you stand for. And everybody else, stick around. We love you too, everybody else, by the way. But, Terry more. And stick around. Is this thing still on? We'll see you on the free-for-all in just a minute. Until next time, always remember the seventh rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule. Boy, it's been a fun one so far, hasn't it? Cirroc and I have been having a blast. Malissa, oh, what a time we've had so far. So we're here, of course, with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
Malissa Longo is here, sporting the radical background, of course. Also joining us, Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy. We have Eve England out in Wales. Grandpa One, aka Tim Baum, aka the laugh champion of 2017, 2018, and 2020. Don't know what happened in 2019. We have Dr. Mohamed Noor coming back to set the world afire. Dr. Susan V. Gruner being the coolest of all time. We have a brand new person here today, Tierney Dieckmann.
Correct.
Great. She's out somewhere in Virginia Beach, I think you guys said.
Yes.
Great. Dr. Marie Segal and Galdu Scott. We've got a full house. Let's have some fun. First things first, Tierney.
Yes.
What's your favorite Star Trek series, by the way?
I mean, obviously DS9. Do we have to spell it out? I have to defend that to too many people. DS9. I like the episodic. It's of the week. It's like, have you watched it in order? Do you know the magnificence that is DS9?
Yep.
I mean,
the Frankie.
really.
All right. Good start. Great start. Okay. Who has something fun to add to this episode? We're guessing it's Homer, who is dressed ever so gallantly.
Yeah, that's a wedding I wanted to be at.
So I dressed for the occasion. Yeah, I mean, look, that's fun. And Jadzia's party was fun. Worf's, I wouldn't even call it a party. But it was really, really neat to see, after the Dominion arc of 6 episodes, to have something a little light, something to ease off that kind of like that drama. So I enjoyed it a lot. More than the IMDb score. I don't know if you covered it before when you were talking to Terry. I'd be curious to know what Cirroc had said about that.
Who knows, right, Cirroc?
IMDb maniac now.
Does anybody remember what it is? I do offhand, and I also thought it was surprisingly low given this episode.
Yeah, that's interesting. I remember them putting a lot of promotion into this episode.
Well,
I'm not mistaken, there was a TV guide about with this episode on it, or the cover.
Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score before everybody gives it away.
Yeah, I didn't guess it. Let me say, it's a wedding episode. Was it not about an 8? Maybe 7.9, 7.9, 8? Was it around there?
Any other guesses?
It had to be 80 point something, or I quit.
She didn't sign anything. She's not quitting.
Thank you.
It's rhetorical.
It was a 10.
I know what it is, so it doesn't count as a guess.
Oh.
Anybody else doesn't know? Wow,
I'll painfully guess a 7. I don't know if you guys are making it sound like it was super low.
Yeah,
so.
I know it's going to be bad, but shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Tierney, what is the correct answer?
7.5. 7.5.
It's too.
It's at least on a low score, it should be like an 8.2. I would think that this would be closer to a 9, a 9.3. I mean, this is the episode after they took back the station. This is the wedding of 2 of the strongest personalities on the show. And I mean, we finally, it's mild, but we finally get a kind of resolution between Kira and Odo, and they start to come back together. And there's a lot of subtle references to many other things. There's lots of great things in this episode, like a ton of them. So it kind of baffled me, the low score on it. I don't know. I don't know what was happening during the time that this actually came out, that maybe people could have been paying attention to other things than going to watch their weekly Star Trek. And again, DS9 is more of its own running story, and things get very intense. And after a big 2-parter for taking back the station, can only surmise to what people actually think at the time. And then again, this is also IMDb, so
right. Well, in fairness, it's probably 7 or 7.5 is like an average score for Star Trek episodes. Deep Space Nine, it usually gets rated higher than the other Star Trek series. I think it has the highest overall rating of any Star Trek series. We can fact check that, but I think it
There's
is.
lines that are spoken in this episode that deserve a 10.
Like what?
Alexander.
Absolutely.
Grandma. I mean, that is a 10.
Or there's just a figure of speech about the drinks.
Oh, hilarious.
Yeah.
kill Worf. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna
It's
kill Worf.
Martok all the way through the whole thing. Everything Martok says. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything she
So
says.
good. Eve England out in Wales, do you have any juicy tidbits from your companion or anything you'd like to show off?
Yeah, there's 2 things, because there's one thing from the companion that was quite interesting, and this is probably going to be a question then for Cirroc. So they say that normally that if they were doing a party scene, so for Dax's party, they said normally they obviously wouldn't have the music and then they'd stop it and then they'd put the music on afterwards to do the dialogue. But they said that in this, they actually had the music playing live to get more of a party atmosphere, and that's so that people would have to shout over the music. So I just thought, sort of, did it feel different, Cirroc? Because I think you were at the party, in terms of, did it feel different? Did it feel more like a party atmosphere than normal, than how they done it the old usual way?
No, I definitely felt like a party atmosphere. And not having music makes a difference, because, you know, you're kind of, you know, sometimes you're dancing to nothing and you're like, yeah, this is great, right?
And it shows sometimes when you have to dance to nothing because everybody's moving at a different beat.
Yeah, everybody's got their own thing going, and you're like, you know, and you don't even know where they're going to lay the music in, if it's going to, you know, match up with your movement. So the other thing that I've been on film sets and kind of experienced is them playing the music, stopping it right before they roll. So they have the music playing, and then they'll stop it and roll the camera, so you kind of have the groove in your head as they're about to roll. But certainly it makes a big difference because everybody's on the same vibe. You know, the music will naturally make you kind of have a little bounce to you. And I thought that in that scene that Terry she really looked like she was having fun and having a party. I don't know if you guys felt that too, but I felt like Dax was like really let down, like the dress she was wearing, but just kind of her whole overall demeanor. She's usually a little bit stiffer. And in that moment, I felt like she was so loose and like, hey guys, turn the music back on and let's party. And I kind of like that about it. It really felt like she was letting herself go a little bit and having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's really interesting to read that, having just watched it, because I thought it was such a great party scene. And, you know, you don't really see that very often. Normally it's sort of like a really awkward, you know, work networking party or something, isn't it? Whereas it just genuinely did feel like you'd actually want to go to that party and have a lot of fun. So that sort of explains how you got that really good vibe on the TV. So it's just interesting to read about that and hear about how that felt a bit different. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, felt different. And of course, you know, Nog always brings the dance moves to the party.
And like every great rager has like people talking in the bathroom, having like a serious conversation.
Yep.
I felt like that was such a great touch for a rager party.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite part of the whole party is just watching Morn the entire time.
Yeah,
so
Ryan,
much more than to just sit still, because most of the time he's just like, and he's killing it. He's dancing. He gets out from behind the couch. The best part too is it was 100% spot on Morn, because in the morning he wakes up and he's still got a drink in his hand. He leaves with it.
Yeah,
just walking around, just walking out through the habitat ring with a drink in his hand. Just starting the next day with the hair of the dog that bit him.
DS9's like
the
Vegas.
Fight with the Bolian. He has the fight with the Bolian, and they make up, and there's that huge body slam that they do. And there's this big sound effect. It's whomp. Just two of them collide.
Oh man.
I'm surprised Morph wasn't as jealous as I thought he would be, coming home and seeing those two guys kind of walking out. I would expect him to punch somebody. More could have got
the look of the Polynesian. I think he's Polynesian, but look on his face when he bumps into Worf. His eyes are so huge.
There was a little tidbit in, I think it was Memory Alpha, that had said, I don't know if it was Ronald D. Moore or whomever had surmised privately or something that if Sorella hadn't intervened or something had changed, that had suggested that Dax would have slept with Polynesian guy if the night had been a little different.
Seemed to be hinting at that when she was kind of like, we'll see.
Yeah, if there's anything else you can do. I mean, Lita was feeling him too. It's just, I guess they like that fire breathing and.
Well, Grandpa One, you sure had a hearty laugh there. Were you feeling them too, or what? What did you think of this episode?
Actually, everybody's brought up the part that I loved the best, and that was the party. And especially the chest bump with Morn. That just that cracked me up. And then also leaving in the morning with a drink kind of reminds me of my weekends. So
Yeah.
But no, I can see why this episode wasn't rated as high as it was. I thought the evil mother-in-law was kind of a tired, that's been done over. So I wish they had shown much more of them making up. But yeah. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. But yeah, Morn was the best part of the whole thing.
What about the Nog Dance?
That's what I'm just gonna say. The Nog Dance. Little thing. I wanted to ask Malissa about that. Did Aaron ever talk about the dance with that? That's brought up like on the IMDb and a few other places of the kind of improv that they had done, and I don't know how true it is or how true any of the stuff you find is, that they had made it more of a focal point than he had initially wanted or something, and then they really focused on it and everybody thought it was great. And it is great. It seems like the perfect Ferengi dance. I love it. So yeah. I wondered his take on that, if you guys had ever talked about it.
Oh yeah. He talked about that scene often, thinking that he had one line in the party, and he's thinking, oh yeah, this is gonna be easy day. I don't have much to do. I'm just gonna sit back and enjoy the party. And then David Livingston comes up to him and says, we're gonna open the scene with you dancing, doing a Ferengi dance. And he's like, what? In his head, what? And he got really kind of angry because he got scared. He had no idea where to draw from. There was no reference to a Ferengi dance, and Armin wasn't there at that moment, and so he talked about his rant to the Na, because she was in that opening part, and he's like, what am I supposed to do? How's this supposed to work? I don't know how Ferengis dance. And then he just started going, he's like, well, maybe they do this, and the Na started laughing, and he said, when you make a beautiful woman laugh, you're doing something right. So and then he's like, well, then maybe if I start shaking my butt, and so he got another laugh from the Na, and he's like, oh, okay, maybe I got it. And so they opened the scene with him doing the Ferengi love dance, and
love dance.
Yes, Ferengi love dance.
I mean, it's very animalistic and kind of primitive, but it's very fun and fierce, and it works very well. Like if you're looking at it on let's say a possible evolutionary standpoint of, I've always thought that Ferengis kind of, if we're going by a comparative biology of Earth, maybe marsupial evolution, they're a little koala-like in their design, that it just kind of evolved from there. And I like to see that a little more in human dancing, with the claws and the fierceness, hopping around, little ear pulling and booty shaking. I think that's much more fun.
Thriller, yeah. Well, and then birds have some interesting love dances too. So
birds of paradise, man.
Yeah, but yeah,
Ferengis to give them a run for their money. Just give them some feathers.
The fruit flies have really cool love dances too.
Tell us, Mohamed. We got to hear this part.
Yeah, literally, like the male fly will come up to the side of the female and extend his wing and vibrate it, and basically in her face, and it makes a very species-specific sound. Like if you actually amplify and listen to it, you can tell one species from another just by the sound it's making from the way it's vibrating its wing. Some of them will come up to the front and put their wings up like that, then run around the back and try to copulate. They have a whole bunch of them.
Except for it's fruit flies.
It's kind of like sending a picture out or something, or sliding into the DMs, right? Just kind of, he's like, hey, check out my wing. Look what it can
Slide
do.
into the DMs. Come on, Ryan.
Mohamed, what did you think about this episode, though, in particular?
I thought it was a lot of fun. I agree exactly with, I can't remember who set it up in the beginning. It was Homer. I can't remember what. Long, dark arc, which was great, but then nice to have a bit of levity in there. One thing, this is just a random bit that got me thinking for a long time. When Jadzia was introduced at the wedding, they said Jadzia, daughter of Kela or whatever. I can't remember what his name is.
Kayla.
Yeah, I kept on thinking, like, so is that
Kela?
Okay, so I kept on thinking, is that Jadzia's dad, or is that like the Dax's dad? And then it got me thinking, like, how do Daxes reproduce?
Yeah.
Or like, how do like the symbionts reproduce? I have no idea. Anyway, that took me down a big rabbit hole.
I mean,
yeah, I think that was the first time we
brains.
heard that, right? Because I wrote that down too, thinking that was the first time I'd heard it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I always figured, because that, at least to me, they look like tiny disembodied brains. I mean, what are we? We're just sacks of meat and veins and spinal column. You take all the stuff off of us and we kind of just look like little aliens floating around.
Maybe they reproduce by budding. It just like splits into two brains.
That it just kind of connects some cells off from the pools and the little symbiont pools, and they just slowly start to grow. I mean, they transfer messages back and forth. They connect into abdomen. So I would think by that point they developed something. I mean,
Which brings up the question of how are trills pregnant? Like, if the symbiont is
Yeah, is
taking
there
up
room
the
in there?
abdomen area,
It
No.
happens in like
Baby.
different. It happens in different body cavities.
Different,
Like
yeah.
that.
well, I mean,
Like
they
abdominal
but-
versus reproductive.
but that's the same with like a woman who has a different cavity for the baby, but is the symbiont going to get pushed out because it's kind
probably
of
pushed out
located
of
where
the way. I mean, if you think,
are you going to see the outline of the symbiont in the trill's
Yeah, she's
belly?
gonna have two bumps sticking off.
Right?
Oh God!
Hey,
Does the symbiont like affect the kid too?
real quick,
Right.
Mohamed, we know you have to run in just a
I do.
second here. We want to make sure if there's any last thoughts you have to throw out before you go.
I'm great. That it was a great episode, and I agree with everything everybody said so far.
Right. So he's leaving us with the homework of looking up fruit flies, and
Yep.
we'll get on it.
I can send you pictures. I got lots of
Ooh.
pictures.
Oh.
Yeah.
W.
Take care, all. Great to see you all.
Thanks,
Bye,
Mohamed.
Mom.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Thanks.
So, Anne Marie, it's an interesting point. If you have a big slug inside your
I guess it just
abdomen,
presses it
and then
out
you
sort of
have
like,
a little slug growing in your abdomen, basically, right? Then are you going to
Yeah.
just kind of get really big?
That's usually what happens when other things like abnormally enlarge in different cavities in your body, or even kind of like your belly button as you get really pregnant and pops out.
No, I don't know. I mean, I've never no children, but when
Or
you
symbionts.
come-
that we know of.
that I know of. That I know of. There might be
So
a few
far.
in there, just judging by thought processes some days. But when you get more into the later months, into the second, third trimester, don't other organs start to shift and move as necessary? So if you actually are made to carry a symbiont, I would think that there's some sort of natural process that's developed over evolution that moves it in the right place, or somehow
That's another
something,
way.
or
maybe-
their uterus is in a slightly different position. I mean, look at, if we can scoot aside into Voyager, the Okamba shoot their babies out their backs. I mean, so there's
Which sounds horrible.
it sounds atrocious.
They have a
I
whole
mean,
spinal
that's
column and ribs, and
Just
I
gonna
don't
get it out
know
of the way.
what's gonna happen there.
So, I would think that there would be something there. And if it affects the fetus itself, it probably, I would think it gathered nutrients from its host. So you'd be eating for 3 then, maybe, or 2.5. I mean,
the twins.
I mean, it's this big, so you're not really, you don't have to eat that much more, but you have to probably consume more than, say, your humanoid female or others that don't have symbionts, but maybe up to a certain point of brain development, it might not be affected. I don't know, because this is fiction. But
Sue, you are a third resident
Yes.
doctor here. What are your thoughts on this or the episode in general?
I think we need an episode on trill physiology.
Yeah. We need more trill.
But
Also, like,
if
for
a woman
example,
can have more than one baby, I think obviously there's a spot that the symbiont has in the trill physiology, and I don't see how it would affect the baby because it's a separate entity. And but no episode has ever gone that deep into that kind of thing.
Wow, that space station
Sure
image
thought.
behind you is so good.
It
Sue.
is.
I've
I'm
had
gonna-
this forever.
Yeah, but
actually
I
there.
never realized
That's
how.
orbiting the planet.
Hang on, I'm going to
Floating in
spotlight you
space.
for a second. Sorry, Sue, but that just looks way too good of detail right there behind you. That is so
You
good.
can see the yellow on it too and everything.
It's a high res picture,
Really is.
obviously. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Sue is the best answer for how does a symbiont work if a trill gets pregnant. Of just, we can fit a lot of babies in us, so
Yep.
you
And
know.
and the symbionts don't get pregnant in the host. They get
Well, I think it would be
pregnant right in
pool.
the pools or whatever.
They're stirring them around and everything.
But
Like
you
Ray's
want to
about to
hear
go
about
do.
how they reproduce.
At least how trill reproduces, that is also a host to a symbiont. But yeah, if people can have triplets and quadruplets and even more, there's room in there somewhere. Maybe not very comfortably, but that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I guess the answer is people have twins and stuff like that. They just get bigger. But when Malissa said it made sense to me, which is like it if they already have this space that's just for the little trill thing that's not even that little, it's like the size of a football or something, then something else growing in there might compress it. But I guess we have other organs in there, and those other organs
abdominal
survive.
cavity operating, things like move around. Nothing's like set in stone exactly unless it's like wrapped in fascia. And reproductive organ, like the uterus grows and pushes other things out of the way, or you transplant like kidneys into an abdominal cavity and your body compensates by things moving around, or just when you're in there, like you push and pull things out of the way. And I think
Put it in a bowl, right? Don't you put organs in a
compensate.
bowl sometimes
sometimes.
when you're digging stuff
No,
out?
but like, I mean, like kidney transplants will have an additional kidney or two, you don't take them out.
My only question with that is that I imagine that the pocket is more like a marsupial than
Yeah.
it actually being inside your body.
Totally.
So the organs inside, yes, would definitely shift around and compensate, but they're in a pocket in front of all of those things. So that was why my
Totally.
question was
That can
raised.
like give and take really interestingly too. Like if you have like a brain surgery, for example, you take out part of your skull and put it in a little pocket in the stomach while the like future brain surgeries are going on, and then you put it back. Or also like if you get a burn on your hands, sometimes you'll like put the whole hand in an abdominal pocket, call it a 6-shooter because the hand's like this on your abdomen. But
That is the most brutal thing I've ever
later.
heard. I love it.
But like, yeah,
blowing
it's
my
kind of like a similar, subcutaneous pocket.
Can I get those to just keep my hands warm?
Yeah.
And for those of you keeping score at home, yes, this is the record for most times marsupial has been mentioned on an episode 2.
2 names for marsupials.
The previous record was
Can we
0.
go for 3?
All right. So before we go, do we have any final thoughts? Maybe Scott, we haven't heard from you much today. What do you think of this episode, or do you have any fun toys to show us today of Jake?
Oh no, I'm actually not home, so moving some stuff around at my brother-in-law and sister's house right now. But I haven't watched this one in a while, and coming up, I do remember not loving it as much as a lot of the other ones. But on this rewatch now, just watching Martok and watching how he has literally taken Worf under his wing, and that first scene where he's talking to Sisko in the beginning, and he's like, "You got me promoted. Do you understand how much paperwork this is going to be?" And that is just Martok, like all the way.
Commander has to do.
This is a normal guy that just was a regular citizen. He's not high blood or any kind of anything. And he worked his way all the way up to this. And I think he's like, whoa, pump the brakes a little bit on this, guys, because I wasn't ready to be this important.
I don't want to do this.
No spoilers, but yeah, this guy's got a hell of a lot of work ahead of him. But he just nailed it in every scene. And the look on his face when his wife came out of that shuttle bay and she just tears him to shreds. And he's like, "Oh, she's magnificent.
You put on weight.
Your hair is
Be in
green.
your grave by now.
I'll endeavor to die this year, my dear." and we see more in the following episodes the wisdom that Martok drops about relationships and marriage, entirely just right and left. Like, there's a reason why this guy is around as long as he is, not just because he's good at swinging bat lefts, but he is wise and deserves everything that's coming up to him. And I actually took a couple of notes because I wanted to make sure that I gave this Martok quote correctly at the end, because it's when they had Worf and Jadzia had their spat and they were, "It's off. No, it's off. No, I quit. You quit, whatever." And Martok goes, "Honor gives little comfort to a man alone in his home and in his heart." And it just rocked Worf right there. And he just, and then the next thing you know, he's apologizing and trying to fix stuff and everything. And I thought that was great. So yeah, I'm excited to see even more great Martok stuff coming up. He's already been great, but it's only going to get even better.
That's another dimension to the whole Klingon thing.
Yeah.
Because he's like, Honor's great. But yeah, Honor's, well, I feel like their hearts are also involved in battle as well and in their victory. That it's so much, the honor is not just for them and dying, but it is to elevate their entire house and their family and the people that they love. So I feel like that's a big line.
Great acting by J.G. Hertzler there. And did you guys notice how well he could sing? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Bellowing voice.
Wrote that down.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, JG, you're rocking.
Yeah, he
it.
was awesome.
So
I want to add something really quick to the Martok stuff, Scott, that you were talking about. One is the line when Worf comes in and he's like, "I think I'm going to talk to her," and Martok looks at him like, "I'm going to do that." And it just made me think of, a buddy, telling, like, "You're going to talk to my wife about something?" Yeah, right. Good luck with that. It's like,
Sorella doesn't.
Oh, because she doesn't like you.
yeah. And then he goes on to say that, which is, why not? Because she doesn't like you either, Worf. So you're not going to go anywhere. So I love that line right there. I love the way Martok was, like, I wouldn't do that if I was you. And there was another moment too, is when that moment between Sisko and Martok in Sisko's quarters, there was a moment at which Martok was reaching for the baseball, and I loved how Sisko kind of caught it and was like, nobody puts their hands on my ball right now.
No, Klingon, you can't eat my baseball.
He's like, I just washed the gray makeup off of it.
He was real protective about that ball. I mean, considering what he had to do to get it back. So I noticed that little subtle moment where he kind of catches him. Is like, no, I'm gonna snatch
Don't touch
it.
it.
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it.
Last thing. Go ahead, Eve.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've actually got the script for this episode as well, and I was watching along with it to see what version it might have been. And actually, it must have been a couple of drafts before, because there's one scene that they cut out that's in the script, which I kind of wish they'd had it in, because it was quite a nice continuity from the occupation. So there's a scene where Bashir is basically clearing out his room and just throwing loads of rubbish out of his room, because somebody was obviously, because I hadn't really thought about this before, but they obviously had people occupying their rooms during the occupation. So he's complaining about all this rubbish that's in his room, and everyone said, well, what's wrong, who's in? And it was Wayu basically that's in his room, and he had all this junk in his
Everything
What do you
so
know
good.
in Bashir's room?
I wanted
the
to see that so
funniest bit is later. Then the next scene is Nog is doing the same thing, and apparently has got even more mess and more gross, disgusting things that he's throwing out of his room. And they're like, oh, well, at least,
it was Jake. It was my stuff. What
yeah,
you doing?
And he said, yeah, it was Jake. And he's like, and it's just like, that would have been so funny to have that sort of possibility from before. Yeah, it was like it's a really short scene, but I was just most of it was pretty similar. But that was just that just made me laugh out loud. I was like, oh wow, I wish I'd seen that one.
Next time we have Sid on the show, we've got to try to remember to ask him if they shot that and just cut it out of the edit. Yeah. Or if they just ended up because Cirroc, because a lot of times you shoot stuff and then eventually you have to whittle it down to the perfect time and they have to cut out a scene or two.
Damn, yeah, I don't know if they cut it out or not, but it would have been a great little just because it just the thought of it by itself, the fact that other people were occupying their rooms is something that didn't really occur to me until you said it. So yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so one quick thing, besides the obvious, the Dax stuff like Curzon or like, mentioning her mom or dad's name. We don't even really know if that was a mom or a dad. Did you guys catch the NAM, the non-appearance mention?
Keiko, yeah.
Oh, I missed that. That's right. He said Keiko's not here, right?
And Gowron.
Yeah. Okay, well, I got a third one that I didn't even think of. Good job, guys. I need to put that in my notes.
There was all those gats too.
I guess I should ask you guys what the NAMs were. But there was another one, more of a reference, somebody we have not seen in this series.
Shelby?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that one was that one's kind of a choose to see it how you will, apparently,
right.
because
we don't know for sure that it's the same person.
Rights to use the character again. So it looks like it was supposed to be a nod to Shelby from Best of Both Worlds, but they are not technically allowed to use her as a character. So it's a big Federation, it's a big Starfleet. So it could be or it couldn't be. It's I think how they said you can take it. I mean, I like to see it as it is because, I mean, which one of us, who doesn't love tons of tiny little references that, you pick up on every rewatch. But yeah, so.
Captain Shelby it is. No, but it's true. There's nothing that confirms that that's who it was. We have no idea. It's just up to us.
I'm glad they didn't confirm it before they when they actually aired the episode, because that could cause a lot of problems legally, apparently. But did you guys, when you talked earlier, touch on the Odo Kira conversation in the bathroom?
Oh yeah, we definitely talked about that.
Okay, I had wondered because apparently that was touched on in one of the novels, what had actually been talked about. I didn't know if you guys had gone over that, and if so, or if not, wanted that information on what Kira and Oda had talked about. If anyone's interested, that didn't.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. Well, apparently in Olympus Descending, a story in the DS9 relaunch series novel Worlds of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Volume 3, Odo and Kira's unseen closet conversation in You Are Cordially Invited. Odo tells Kira that he shouldn't have agreed to her request to that he not link with the founder leader. It was unfair of her to ask him to break off contact with his people and to go against his nature. It's also unfair of Kira to be angry at him for having humanoid sex with the founder. He was trying to teach the latter more about humanoid life. He tries to educate her. He tries to educate her about changelings and the link, though he himself doesn't know many details. Linking doesn't mean sharing everything one knows, only what they choose to share. He draws parallels between Kira's connection to the prophets and his to the founders, and that they both done things that they aren't proud of on behalf of their peoples. He acknowledges that he acted out of character, and that makes it hard for Kira to trust him, but they begin to repair their friendship. So I assume within the novel,
great.
There's more information. Frankly, that given that they talk till 10:30 the next morning, that's seems a little, well, petty for one. And they both seem above pettiness, or at least Kira seems above pettiness, though given their behavior of avoidance, who knows? But at least that was a bit better, them having the conversation than apparently what was initially planned of Odo making some big stance at Daxon Worf's wedding that essentially, you guys don't want to be my friends anymore. You don't trust me, so bye. And then just not really being utilized for the rest of the season. And Renee Auberjonois and a few others, they went to the writers and said that they weren't really feeling that, so they didn't do that, had them resolved really quick. There's a lot of things in this episode, just lots of little things, great lines and stories everywhere. And maybe that's why it's got the 7.5, because unless you've watched it like 4 or 5 times and you know the series, it's a little disjointed. It's like a bunch of vignettes of too much information. And yeah, so they got their resolve in a bathroom that looks like it's full of Sterilite containers that I'm assuming.
Yeah, was that a
our
bathroom?
first view of, I think
I was
so.
wondering.
It looks like it's
Or a
got a bunch
closet,
of
yeah.
toiletries or something. It almost looks like there
It's
might
a powder room.
be something like Sterilite tubs that are maybe toilets. Is that our first view of Star Trek toilets? They're just pull out things that
waste reclamation. Yeah.
yeah.
But it could have been
Reclamation.
a with a seat.
Yeah, something. It looks like a
Powder
bathroom.
room.
I mean, it looks like it's got toiletries and towels and stuff. But yes, apparently that conversation, sure there's more information of, well, dialogue in the book was that, sorry I had relations with one of my own kind while not in a relationship with you. It seems very petty. But
Boy, he was explaining himself. Yeah.
I mean,
Explaining
it's something. It's something.
Oh, and Jake got published in this episode too. Man.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
First book,
Finally.
Jake got published. Got to
Yeah.
tell. The cool part is too. I was remembering when you were talking about the books. There is this other book called, this is going to be hard to say, Prophecy and Change, and it is actually the Visitor, but in this timeline, and it's old Jake. It's telling, I can't remember what her name was, but Andrew Robinson's
Really?
daughter played the role.
Melanie.
And telling her these stories, and Jake is like, well, it's not about the big stuff. You've heard about the Dominion War. You've heard about it. It's about the little things. And like one of them is Nog having an orb experience, and then one with Jake and Zial becoming good friends during the whole revolution thing, and how that was always like a little bit. I thought it was glaring. It should have been Jake and Zial, but there was other political reasons to put her with Garrick. But yeah, and it's really cool because it's kind of like the book that we saw Jake write in The Visitor, but he wrote it in the regular timeline. So
Wow, that is so
pretty
cool.
fun.
Can you hold up the cover again?
Yeah, it's called Prophecy and Change, and it's got Captain Sisko and
Wow.
Commander Sisko and everybody around the edges. You got there's a little
Yeah.
Jake there. I don't know if you can see that. It's real
Little
bad
Jake.
lighting.
Who wrote it? Who's the author?
Oh, it's a bunch of people. It's the cool thing is all the stories are written by different people. Andrew Robinson has his first story since A Stitch in Time, a short story in the back here that is another, I believe it's another story back to Dr. Bashir post TV show. But a lot of them are really cool. Like the Nog there's a full-on Nog story about him going on a heist because it's just before he decides on Starfleet and everything. And Kai Wynn offers him a orb experience for pay. And because he has that orb experience, he understands that, wait a second, I'm more than just, some little criminal kid. And he still goes and cracks a safe and stuff, but it's perfect. Yeah, it's a really cool Jake stuff as well with that whole him and Zial story, because it's a lot of the stuff. The story is a lot about him writing the letters out and trying to put code in them that Wayun is reading And in the last couple episodes, we talked about how Wayne's like, no, we can't send this out. So we can't do that. And Jake is trying to put in different code to get messages out to his dad. It's really cool stuff.
Okay, we got to hear more about that at some point, because that is such a good book. I can't believe it. I want to hear all about it. Maybe at a round table or something.
Sounds read it, Brian. You could read it.
Oh, whoa, easy.
That might be too much.
I'd rather just hear the stories as told by Goldie
You're so
Scott.
good at voices, dude. You can do it. You're so good at voices.
Get your Cliff Notes.
I prefer just listening to Scott tell us. That's very entertaining. I like that so much more than spending 10 hours reading it. Anyway,
horse.
Yeah, I do like that too. It's a big one.
We do have to run though, but thank you all very much for joining us. Scott, Eve, Tim, Anne Marie, Tierney. Is that Irish?
Yes, actually, very good. It's Gaelic.
Cool.
Tierney.
Homer, Malissa, Sue, PhD, and Cirroc Lofton for Mr. Aaron Eisenberg, the coolest person ever and best dancer, by the way. My name is Ryan T. Husk. Thank you very much for joining us. And always remember the 7th rule.